Hello, Tyler Bryan here. Hope everything's going well. Very excited to say that Monika and I's firstborn daughter came into this world on August 14th, which happened to be my birthday as well. So it was quite a birthday gift, quite a surprise. And now, as of recording this, it's just a week into Maya's life. That is our daughter's name. And it's been a very exciting week. A lot of changes, a lot of love, a lot of learning, a lot of laughs, a lot of emotions. And so what I wanted to do today was something a little different, which is just basically share my experience in the first days of Maya's life, of my daughter's life, and just being a dad, my first week as a dad. The disclaimer I hear, so I guess right off in the start, I'm not creating any informational courses or anything on this. It's just a reflection. And I found when I was especially gearing up, like when we were getting close to the due date, that I was looking for videos like this, like what's the first week like? And there were some really good videos on there, but I guess my ego tells me that maybe I could add some of my own perspective and that would be helpful for people. So leading up to the birth, I think you get a lot of stories or different perspective on having kids. That's one layer, which is, oh my God, I can't believe you want to do this. They're going to be crying. There's so much work. It's so much money. And then the other layer is more like, oh, the actual birth, the delivery itself is so horrible, so much pain, so much drama and trauma. And it definitely does seem like there is a decent percentage of people who like to share that part of the experience or their perspective. But I was lucky enough to also run into some people who I think we're very intentional in doing the opposite and saying, hey, not every experience is so bad. Our experience was beautiful, and the early days of our children's life was beautiful. And even maybe there were some tough moments, but then looking back, you realize how special and amazing it was. And I think those words and those people were really important as you lead up to this very monumental moment, I think, in anyone's life, having your first child. So I wouldn't say ignore the naysayers or the people who have that perspective, the more, dark, negative perspective, but just take it with a grain of salt and know that your experience can be different than that. Now, saying that, I think I'm lucky because we had a very smooth delivery experience and birthing experience. And I know some friends and neighbors who recently have had kids and their experience was not the same. While there's definitely some negative perspective out there, maybe not always for the right reasons, there is true that there can be some very scary delivery days and deliveries. The one thing that I take solace in is that each one of those that I heard from friends and neighbors is that their baby is very healthy and happy now. And even those scary moments that were temporary, they were able to work through, and the babies are in a good place now and the parents are in a good place. And whether it's an epidural not working properly or an emergency C-section, all the complications that can arise, healthcare is so advanced now, and it's really incredible, what doctors and healthcare is able to do to make sure that there is a good delivery and a healthy and happy mom and baby in the end. I think it's interesting, like, how do you prepare for it? Obviously, a lot of conversations. We'd go to the gym and I would talk to people there all the time, say, hey, what's it like? And give me advice. And some people would give you some great advice. Other people would say, hey, it doesn't matter. You just feel, and it's a very intuitive process. The other thing I think we're so lucky with today is we just have a plethora of technology at our fingertips, able to access at any time. And so in the past, I would say, hey, Google is my best friend. In this case, ChatGPT from OpenAI has been a huge driver of knowledge for me. And I know there's some weird critique that could possibly arise from that. In general, that technology is meant to provide you a good user experience. And with ChatGPT's memory and sort of the context of the baby and my wife and I, it really was a powerful tool to help us understand how to prepare. And then now, even after the birth, what can we do to help? And so getting ready for the baby, I think just organization as a whole. We use Trello, my wife and I, to organize things. I'm a big spreadsheet person, so I would put that in. And then really basically, as early as we could, we started to get the items that we needed. Obviously the nursery set up, and not really using the nursery that much yet, 7 days in. And then the bag to bring to the hospital, making sure that you have the car seat ready to go in the car. So if it happens, because you don't know exactly when it's going to happen, Monika just had her water break and then it was time to go. We had no idea if we were coming back or not. We didn't come back. And so if we didn't have that, And we're lucky we're relatively close to the hospital, but I would have had to drive, come back with the car seat to then be able to bring the baby out. So the easier you can just get organized in advance makes those moments when maybe it feels a little chaotic, a little bit intense, it makes them much calmer and smoother. I think on a side note, mental preparation can come in multiple ways. And what I've experienced already is that life changes a lot, but then it also doesn't. So the things that you were doing before are really what continue. And so for me, I was going to the gym 3 days a week. I was playing hockey. I was playing ultimate frisbee. And within a week, you start to get settled already and you're able to go back and do those things. And those like very healthy habits that you build can be restored quickly. Now I'm lucky because I'm a father. My wife is exclusively breastfeeding. She's very nice. I've been able to help when I'm here and then jump out for an hour or two and come back, and she's very confident and capable. And I hope that you have that as well too. But those things really cement your mental fortitude when you're getting ready for what people describe as those sleepless nights that you are preparing for. I think that's obviously one of the elephants in the room that people always seem to ask about. Oh, you're never going to sleep again. What's that like? I'm now only 7 days into this, so you got to take all this with a grain of salt. You could have that naive optimism or confidence that comes this early into a baby, and I know that babies change very quickly and rapidly, and from everyone I've talked to, the evolution, the learning never stops, and you can think you're killing it one day and the next day you're in a world of pain. But at least my experience so far has been, yes, you're setting an alarm every 2 hours, 3 hours to wake up. And that's what I'm doing with my wife. We're in the room together, sleeping with the baby, co-sleeping, which is another big topic and a lot of fear. I think one of the things that I didn't expect is the fear, just the fear that your baby is living. I shouldn't even laugh at that because it's such a scary thing and it's such a difficult thing. Like SIDS, basically sudden infant death. It's apparently a relatively low percentage, but you think your baby's there and they're laying and then all of a sudden they roll over in their mouth and they get caught and they can't breathe and they suffocate. There's lots of different ways that happens. But when you wake up in the night, you look over and sometimes your baby's breathing is very obvious. Sometimes your baby's breathing is not as obvious. It can be really fear-inducing thing. And the first night in the hospital, I actually woke up. I didn't even wake up. I was obviously a lot and very intense and all this stuff, but I woke up looking over the baby and I didn't even realize I had woken up. I wasn't really conscious until I was already standing. So there's definitely this parental instinct that kicks in and this anxiety that is a really powerful, I would say almost beautiful thing that also has a driver that helps you through less sleep than you would normally be used to. And I've seen that myself. I love my sleep, and before the baby I was consistently 7-8 hours a night just straight through. Now I'm in these 2.5 hour bursts, whatever they are. But my wife also really struggled with lack of sleep and she would almost get sick. But now that she's had the baby, whatever that is seems to kick in and she's just persevering and driving through. And the other part that it's nice is you get these glorious naps, and I've always loved naps, but when you're somewhat sleep deprived, it feels very good, especially on a nice summer afternoon or whatever it is, and you're laying there looking at your baby and your wife, and you're all just sleeping peacefully. Now, I'm jumping around because that's just who I am, and I should have probably put a little bit more of a structure to this video, but I'm freestyling here now. Going back to the actual delivery here in Mississauga where we had the water break. It was not this massive burst like everyone thought. The burst did come about 45 minutes later, but we started to pack up and head to the labor assessment center. And we know that Monika had been dilated already 1 centimeter and then came back the following 2 centimeters just for standard appointments. But when we got there, after the water broke, we were at 4 centimeters. And so the doctor at that point said, hey, it was funny, the doctor, I was tracking contractions, says, oh, first timers, rookies. He had a good laugh about that. And he said, nope, looks like you're having a baby tonight or at the latest tomorrow morning. And so we were actually admitted and put it into the birthing suite and set up. Now, this is where I think women have the option. Do you have the epidural or do you have a more natural birth for us. There was no C-section scheduled. There was no emergency C-section. We're very grateful for that. And you can see the impact that it has on women who have the C-section and their recovery time and their mobility and just the experience overall. And even my stepmom, who had a C-section, has a very different experience of birth than my wife does through natural labor. My wife, I think every woman seems to go, not every woman, but a lot of women go in, especially I think the first time, with the intention to go naturally. My wife had a tough day the day before and even a couple nights. And so she was pretty exhausted going into this. And so nicely said, hey, there's nothing wrong with the epidural. There's no awards for tolerating this pain. And if you want to do the epidural, was set up. Monika took a little break for a while, but then said, you know what, let's go ahead with epidural. They set it up. Great people all around. And then what was great for Monika is after the epidural, the contractions were relatively painless. She could barely feel them. And so she actually got to sleep. And during that time, they actually put oxytocin in her to accelerate the contractions because she had basically stalled out at 4 centimeters. And so overnight, she got to sleep, wake up, and then she's basically ready to go. She's ready to push this baby out. I think from my experience, if that's possible with the epidural, get some rest before the actual delivery itself was definitely something that I'm not a woman, but I would recommend, my wife would definitely recommend. And I think it came away from her a much more positive birth experience than some of the women that we've been talking to who maybe gone other routes or weren't lucky enough to be able to get the epidural in time or whatever actually took place. Now, the pushing itself, very to me, again, my wife had an epidural. I was sitting there. I thought it was way more like fun and exciting than leading up to it and all the stories and all the videos I even watched in prenatal classes. Like, it was nowhere near as gross as I thought it was going to be, which was interesting to me. I hate all the hospital experiences and blood and all that stuff, but it was like really cool to see like the baby's head sticking out and they're like, oh my God, hair. And then watching that. So I was standing at the top, but I could see what was going pretty clearly. And I won't get that imagery out of my head, but it doesn't gross me out at all. It was actually a very exciting and beautiful thing. And I helped my wife, held her hand and even helped her legs so that she could push better. And for us, Monika did an incredible job. And the baby was out 30 minutes later, which for first time is not always the way it goes. It could be hours of pushing. And so we're super happy. And it was funny. The doctor said, hey, come back next year. This was easy. This was wonderful. And so I think all things considered, part of my optimism here today is coming from that experience that we had, which was a very positive one. A healthy, happy baby, happy, healthy wife, a short stay in the hospital. And that was, I think, a really big thing for myself, was to get out of the hospital safely, but as quickly as possible, and get back into the home environment, one that you've made conducive for your baby and for your life, and it just feels like home and something that you're used to. So now you're out of the hospital, you're back at home in the world, and you realize all of a sudden you've got a baby. The first night in the hospital had been relatively intense. I had that moment where with Maya, the baby, my daughter, and she poops. I lift her up, then she pukes on me, and then I'm changing her diaper and she's peeing. The triple threat. And it was like, wow, I'm really in it here now. And there's definitely those moments of, oh my God, what have I got myself into? For me, that's never passed the threshold of like, why the hell did I do this? I should have never done this. I think even if that threshold comes, like that's a temporary thing, and you're so full of love and you love this thing. It's partially you, it's partially your wife. You've created this thing together. Like it just fades away even when you have those moments. Oh my God. And so I've been able to push through that really well. My wife has done an incredible job. And for her, there's a lot of Tylenol involved and a lot of laying down, a lot of horizontal parenting and breastfeeding. And all of that has been conducive to her sort of healing. And a week in, she has still, I think, a ways to go. Some of her friends' recent experience, similar birth, 4 to 6 weeks. She's only a week in, but doing a good job and being optimistic throughout that. I do think, again, as a man, as a father, you're lucky because I can just go back. Second or third day, I just was like, I'm going to go for a quick run. I need to get my heart rate up and get some energy out. My wife can't do that. And so I think that's difficult. And I think the other piece is just your wife, you realize how much of a rock they are, how much they're responsible for, how much your baby loves them. That's the other thing, is like you as a man cannot replace, especially if you're breastfeeding exclusively, you just can't replace the mother. The baby wants to eat at all times. That's basically it. They're hungry all the time. They're and their legs are kicking and their hands are going in their mouth, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna rock you, I'm gonna whisper, but really I know what you want, and unfortunately I cannot provide it. And yes, maybe 4-6 weeks I can help bottle feed and I can contribute more, but for now you really are almost like an equipment manager. You're just like passing things to your wife, making sure that they're comfortable, and you don't feel, any, at least I don't feel any annoyance at doing that, because you just realize what they just went through. Not only like the 9 months pregnant, and you especially see towards the end the toll that takes, but then the actual delivery itself, the pain that comes from that, and then now the responsibility for them to be breastfeeding at all times. And I know my nipples are sensitive. I wouldn't want this thing latched onto them at all time, just going hard. And your respect for your wife just goes up immensely, and your love for them. And it's just your job to just help them out and cherish them and cook for them and do whatever you can, especially in these early days. And already 7 days in, the intensity of that starts to slow down a little bit, and she's better at walking and standing and feeding. And so I'm able to record a video like this, or I'm able to go play some hockey or whatever that is. But those first couple days are pretty intense. What else has really stood out for me? I guess, the nights. What do? Your baby's losing 10% of its weight, and you need to restore it back to its original weight in ideally the first 8 to 10 days. And so you're breastfeeding every 2 to 3 hours, but then what we've seen, I guess, called cluster feeding, the baby just really hungry at random times, and sometimes very long periods, sometimes short, sometimes it just seems like they're looking for a bit of comfort. But you need to be prepared to feed, and that's really taking up a lot of your time. And when they're not, they're sleeping, and maybe you get a little bit of wake time where they're looking around, and those are really beautiful moments. You can see their eyes dilating and them just processing the world, and they can't really see much. Apparently it's like colorblind, and it's just black and white and high contrast, but it's still just amazing to see them awake even for those 30 minutes max. But besides that, like my wife, after the novelty period, you can see it, like my wife's like bored in a way, because she's laying there breastfeeding, and of course she's lovingly looking at the baby and everything like this, but then the baby falls asleep and you're stuck there and you're like, what do I do? And so she's shopping, she's watching things, she's listening to music, and you realize that there is time to fill, because your baby's not as active as they are going to be, especially down the line. And I'm seeing that now with my sister's son, who's a year and 3-4 months now. Man, he is active and he's awake, and you got to be alert. And so I think that is that cherished time that people talk about later, where although there's maybe some intensity in the feeding and sleep schedule and all this, and just the lack of regiment and schedule, most of the time is pretty quiet. You feed them and they're sleeping, and there's a lot of time for you in those moments, especially if you can get them in the bassinet or whatever, which we haven't been very good at doing, to be frank. Maya's been able to sleep a few times, especially in the afternoon, like not directly on us, but generally she wants to be touching skin to skin, or more specifically my wife's breast and nipple. And I think that is something that hopefully evolves, and we'll be able to fix that out. But we're not rushing that, and people have different ideas on how they want their kid to sleep, and away from them or with them. Again, right now we're co-sleeping, which again can have some really scary things, but at least so far has been safe. And we've set up a structure with this sort of C curl hold, or even directly on the chest with nothing around. And because we have a king bed, I'm far away where the baby can sort of sleep safely, and haven't really had any scares besides the irrational ones when you wake up and say, oh my God, is she breathing? And then you quickly realize that she is. I think emotionally, again, very exciting. It can be like very intense happiness, and then a very intense, I wouldn't say sadness, but my wife is experiencing that, and part of that is just all the emotions and hormones that come after, where it's like she's already thinking about Maya growing up, and there's emotion there. For me, I'm having very emotional, wow, my life feels whole, I can't believe this, a lot of surreal moment. And then I think the emotion comes with this responsibility of, I want to be the best version of myself. How can I do that? How can I achieve that? And in one case, I'm working out and trying to keep that piece going together. That part, I'm like stuffing muffins into my face at 3 a.m. in the morning. Again, that doesn't matter too much right now, but you realize this weight of wanting to be the best version of yourself and creating this happy, healthy environment for your baby so that they can thrive. One of those ways that men can get most involved, and did this through our prenatal classes, and then in this men's group I'm part of, is just like skin to skin contact with your baby. And taking that opportunity. And so I'm trying to do that as much as I can. I'm just ripping my shirt off and putting the baby on it, putting it on the chest, holding here. And I've had some really beautiful bonding moments with my baby there. And there's still some stressful moments where I'm like, I wish I could soothe you more, knowing that once I get the bottle, once I get the pacifier, and I've got a couple rockin' tricks and some whispers and stuff seeming to make a little bit of an impact, or at least if I can see that she's hungry, delaying her from going from that realization of hunger to like actual crying, especially if my wife's having a shower or taking a little break, which she deserves. And so trying to give your wife those moments are really important. So even if I can see that she's going to start to cry, I'll try to walk downstairs just so my wife can have a shower for a minute and not have to hear the baby crying, and creating that fear instinct that's so now there and present for a woman with a daughter. And another thing, this is a side note for me, I have worked very hard, almost a year sober here right now, as someone who formerly partied, but marijuana, which has a lot of impact, I find, on sleep quality and even just mood. I've focused on being completely sober. I'm almost a year sober, and I can tell you confidently that has made a huge impact on my quality of care for my baby, the ability to handle stress. And so I can't really just say to you, just get sober for your baby. But the more I think you can be clear and less reliant on substances, the more you feel like yourself, the more strong you are, the more resilient you are, especially when you start to lack some sleep. Which for me, when I lack sleep, especially if I was using any substances, it could really impact my mood and put me into either a depressed state or a manic state. And so I just did not want to bring that into my daughter's life, and I'm very glad to have made that decision. What else? Changing diapers. As a man, as a father, it has been like one of my biggest contributors. So when we set off that alarm at whatever, 3 a.m, whenever it is, take a look at the diapers. Okay, there's a blue line. Or you just take a look and go, there's a poop. Pick the baby off your wife, go into a diaper change, let your wife have a washroom break, whatever, because you know that she's now going to have to spend an hour feeding this baby. Really, you can go back to sleep or just at least lay there. And in that instance, if I'm not falling back asleep, I'm trying to talk to my wife and comfort her and talk to my baby. And so diaper changing is a great way that you contribute. Cleaning the house is a great way you contribute. Your wife does not want to do all that and then walk downstairs or whatever and see it's an absolute mess. So I've been keeping the house very clean, and then just cooking. I'm not a very good cook. That's a journey. Avocado toast, making sandwiches. And if you're lucky enough to have some family around, they've come and dropped off lasagnas and things that are very quick and easy to make. So sometimes you're moving pretty quickly. We've already had a couple doctor's appointments where you're in, you're out, you got a visitor, then appointment, whatever. Those quick meals are really important. And in several instances, especially in those first days, I would literally make the meal come. My wife would be breastfeeding, exhausted, and then I would just give the food directly into her mouth and choo-choo train it in. And I can see the happiness that that's bringing my wife, that I'm at least trying those things. And with everything that they've been through, you just want to keep them as happy as possible. You don't want your marital satisfaction or your relationship to suffer because of this choice that you've made and this beautiful baby that you've brought into the world. It's just not really a fair situation to create. And you have your hands, you have your abilities, do what you can do to make like a positive impact for your wife and for your baby so that everyone's happy and there's no regret or tension towards each other because the rules aren't being taken care of. Lots of music. I'm playing lots of music in the background. There's a baby sleep playlist on Spotify. I created a playlist called Soft Love. Lots of music. I find that's really helpful. I'm trying to also introduce my baby to a lot of music. The other thing I'll say, this is my little piece that I claimed, is I got these Govee lights throughout our house. One's in the back, even here behind me right now. And you can turn those red lights on. And so at night after 7:30, turn those red. And you can have it so then you've got vision, but you're not getting the blue light. And so when you wake up, you're not just turning a big bright light on, flashing the baby and just waking them up or just startling them with that light. And so these red lights, these sort of night lights throughout the house have been very effective. I'm controlling them through my phone. I've got these little scheduled runs. And so that's my one sort of tip or advice. Get these Govee lights here. They're very easy to set up, and they work just like normal lights too. So literally you can get some bulbs like this and set them up in your bedroom or the nursery, and those will make a big impact for you. And yeah, I've got some friends who make fun of me for my red light district that I've created in the house, but I love it, and that's been super helpful. There's so much more I could talk about, but that's a little bit of my reflection on 7 days, the first week as a dad. It's beautiful, it's emotional, it's exciting, it's intense, it's chaotic, it's powerful, it's heartwarming, it's all those things, all the stereotypes, all the stuff put together. And if you're watching this video because you're getting ready to be a dad, just know it's an amazing time. You're ready. People talk about the instincts kicking in. It's true. You can feel it. You just look at your baby, you love it, and you just want to take care of it. And even as someone who has not been around a lot of babies, it just kicks in and you realize what you got to do when. And your whole sort of thing is just, okay, baby has a problem. What is this problem? What are the signs of this problem? And how can we resolve? Again, in the end, most of the time it's I'm hungry. And if you can take care of that, you're going to have a very happy and healthy baby. So good luck to you no matter what. I'll probably keep recording videos as I gain some perspective and insights and wrestle with all the fun stuff that comes along with having a baby. But this was my reflection after the first week, and I'm very happy to be a dad with a happy, healthy baby, a daughter, Maya. And I'm very proud of my wife and everything that she's done to bring this baby into our world and take care of it so wonderfully. So thanks for checking this video out. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye-bye.